Talking and walking, walking and talking. Gosh, Stuart, I really feel worn out after all that exercise.
Exercise? You'd feel worn out after cleaning your teeth. Not that you do that very often. Or wash your hands.
Very funny, Stuart. Either way, I'd have caught a bus to Emmaus. I wouldn't have walked.
Bus? The only bus you would have caught in those days would have had 2 humps and smelly breath.
Come on, boys. You're not arguing again, are you? I know you're in your own home.
It's that daft brother of mine. He reckons he would have caught a bus to Emmaus. I told him things were a bit different back in the old days when you were young, Mr. Allen.
Not so much the cheek, Stuart. But yes, things were very different when Jesus talked with the 2 disciples on the road to Emmaus. Can you imagine, boys? There were no cars, no buses, no computers, no newspapers, no radio, and no television.
No television? Must have been very boring then.
Boring? Far from it, Butch. The most exciting events in history were taking place at that time, and the people were in a state of absolute shock. Jesus had just been crucified, but news was spreading around that he had been seen alive and well.
How did people know this had happened if there's no television and no news apps?
News was spread by word of mouth in those days, but even so, sometimes it could spread very quickly.
They must have been very confused to hear that Jesus was alive again.
Yes, indeed. Many of Jesus' followers had expected him to lead a rebellion against the Romans and lead the Jews into freedom.
Yeah, that's right. He was going to beat them up and throw them to the lions. Gosh, I like all that blood and gore.
Blood and gore? You almost fainted the last time you cut your finger.
Well, you can imagine how disappointed they were when Jesus allowed himself to be captured and crucified. All their dreams must have flown out of the window, and they must have been absolutely dismayed. Just think how you feel if your superhero, who you thought was invincible, was suddenly killed off.
But they must have been ever so excited if they heard that Jesus was still alive.
Yes, that's all they could talk about as they journeyed along the road to Emmaus, and they shared all the gossip with Jesus when he joined them on their journey.
But I just can't understand why they didn't recognise Jesus. If I bumped into my superhero, I'd recognise him straight away.
Yes, that is strange, Butch, and the Bible says that they were prevented from seeing him. Maybe it was their lack of faith that blinded them.
Lack of faith? I thought they were Jesus' disciples and believed him.
They were disciples, but even after all Jesus' teachings, they still didn't understand. They just didn't get it.
It's a bit like Stuart's maths. He just doesn't get that.
I think that Jesus must have despaired of his disciples sometimes, but he never gave up. Even on this journey to Emmaus, he continued to explain how the past events had been prophesied in the Bible, and that they should not have been surprised or shocked at the things that had happened.
Did they understand then?
Well, not really, but when they reached Emmaus, they were so engrossed they invited Jesus in for supper, rather than let him continue his separate way.
They must have been dead hungry after walking all that way. I get hungry even thinking about food.
That's all you ever think about, Butch. No wonder you're getting podgy.
Well, yes, I expect they were hungry, both for food and more teachings. But it was at this point, when Jesus had prepared the bread and prayed, that the penny dropped and the disciples suddenly realised who they had been talking to.
That was incredible. But what happened next, Mr. Allen?
Well, the disciples were both amazed and shocked, because at this point Jesus disappeared and left them on their own again. But they were incredibly excited and wanted to share their news with their friends in Jerusalem.
So don't tell me they talked and walked, walked and talked all the way back.
Well, actually, they ran and they skipped with joy. They couldn't wait to get back.
Well, I still would have caught a bus, or even a taxi.
You're just lazy.